Morning students, and welcome to Digital Classroom. Today we will see the second part of Effects of British Rule. Standard 8, subject History and Civics. Students, yesterday we have seen in the first part that establishment of East India Company, the British and the Marathas. In that we have discussed about how did the British took the entry in India, then the war between the British and Maratha, the first war, the second war, third war, what were the consequences of those war, and what was the effect on Daulat Rao Shinde we saw in the first part. Whereas we have seen the subsidiary alliances which the Britishers had with the Indian rulers, what was the condition of subsidiary alliance, as well as what was the effect on Chhatrapati Pratap Singh and what was the work done by Chhatrapati Pratap Singh. We have studied in detail, and I hope you have read this part of the lesson thoroughly. Now we will proceed further with the effects of British rule on India. In this we are going to see the dual government, act passed by the parliament, the civil service, the military and police force, judicial system, equality before law, economic policies of the British, land revenue policies, consequences of new land revenue. Now in part 2 we are going to see all these effects, whereas 3 we are going to see commercialization of agriculture, famine, development in transport and communication system, decline of traditional industries in India, development of new industries in India, social and cultural effects. So these effects we are going to see in part 3 of the lesson. Now let us study in detail the effects of British rule on India. The first effect was dual government. What is this dual government? Here students, when we see that the dual government, Robert Clive in 1765 he introduced this dual government, means in Bengal. Here what was the dual government? That Nawab of Bengal and Robert Clive, they divided the work. Whereas collection of revenue he kept with himself, with the company, that is East India Company, whereas to maintain law and order was kept with Nawab of Bengal. So what was the ill effect of this dual government? Here the money which was collected in the form of taxes went in the hands of East India Company, and so the trade monopoly in India was completely in the hands of East India Company. The working system of the company in India received criticism from England as well as British Parliament. And so looking at this, the British Parliament passed some important laws to control it. This is what the dual government, what was the ill effect of dual government. We will see acts passed by Parliament. Now here there are, if you read this paragraph, you will understand students that there are different acts passed. Like the first act was according to Regulating Act of 1773. The Bengal governor came to be known as Governor General. This act designated the governor as the Governor of Bengal to Governor of General. Lord Warren Hastings became the first Governor General of India. He had control all the policies of Mumbai and Madras province. Also, this committee had 4 members who assisted him. Next act was Pitt India Act of 1784. A board of control was constituted to regulate and manage the affairs of East India Company in India. The board was authorized to issue directive to the company regarding the governance of India. In 1830, 1833 and 1853, new laws were passed by the Parliament to change the working of the company. With this emergence of British rule, a new administrative system got developed in India. Civil services, military, police force and judicial system, they became the main pillars of British administration in India. Now let us study in detail what are civil services. Civil services. Lord Cornwallis introduced bureaucracy in India to strengthen the British rule in India. What is bureaucracy? Students, bureaucracy means the system of official rules that an organization has for doing something that people often think it is too complicated. That was introduced by Lord Cornwallis. So he introduced this bureaucracy in India to strengthen the British rule in India, because he wanted that the strict and disciplined government should be introduced in India, so that they can have a whole control, or they can carry out the trade in India in a systematic way. He also restricted the private trade carried out by the company officers by increasing their salary. He divided the territories occupied by the British into districts for administrative convenience. The district administration was headed by district collectors. So, in a systematic way, he divided the work. The collector undertook work such as collection of revenue, administration of justice, maintenance of law and order. These officers, now who were these officers? These officers were appointed through competitive examinations called as Indian Civil Services, ICS. So, this was the important step taken by the East India or the Britishers to introduce the civil services. Today we are having IS, IPS, yes. So these people, they come from where? How they are elected or how they are selected? They are selected by these civil services only. Next was military and judicial system. So, the military was responsible to protect the Indian territories, to secure new territories, to quell or uprising against the British in India. So, this military, what was the work of this military? First, to protect Indian territories from other intruders like the French, the Dutch, the Portuguese. To secure new territories means to capture new territories which are in and around India. To revolt against to quell the revolt means to stop the revolt which was going against the Britishers in India. For that, the military and police force was introduced. The duty of police force was to maintain law and order within India. The judicial system means the court. It was modeled after the judicial system in England. Looking under the judicial system of England, it was framed accordingly in India. A civil and criminal courts were set up in every district. High courts were set up to reconsider the judgments of the district court. So this was the administrative systems. The civil services, the military, the police force, the judicial system, they all are called administrative systems. These are indirectly the effects of British on India. Some were very good, like we can see this administrative systems which they introduced. They were really very good because they taught us the rules and regulations, how to control, how to have administration in particular country, what are the pillars of administrative system. So these all were introduced by the Britishers. Now there were certain merits of judicial system. What were the merits of judicial system? So this judicial system had some of the merits as well as the defects. Let's see what were the merits of the judicial system which was introduced by Britishers in India. The committee under the leadership of Lord Macaulay enforced Indian Penal Code all over British rule India. It was based on British principles of equality before law. Whereas some of the defects of this judicial system were, there were separate laws and court for the Europeans. Common people did not understand the new laws. Justice was very expensive and time consuming, as cases remained pending for years and years. Similarly, the next what we are going to see are the equality before law. This what we have seen in merits and demerits. In earlier times, law in India differed from place to place. There was difference in judgment on the basis of casteism. Under the leadership of Lord Macaulay, a committee was set up to create the code of law. The Indian Penal Code was enforced all over British India with British principles of equality before law. But there were some defects in it. There were separate courts and different laws for the Europeans. New laws were difficult to be understood by common people. Legal cases became an expensive affair for the community and the cases remained pending for years together. So these were some of the defects and some of the merits of judicial system in India. Now we will see economic policies of the British. Many invaders settled in India and were absorbed in Indian culture. They did not make many changes in the basic Indian economic system. Capitalist economic prevailed in England due to industrial revolution. Capitalist economy means the people started earning more. Because of industrial revolution, new machineries were set up, large scale industries were developed, new technology was developed, transportation developed. Because of this, the economy, or you can say, had a vast industrial revolution. We have seen in the earlier chapter what is industrial revolution. Yes or no, students? So can you recollect some of the industrial revolutions? Yes? There were many technological innovations in Europe. There was production with the help of machines running on steam. The cottage industries were replaced by big factories. Machines came to be used instead of handlooms, and that time the age of machines began, and that was known as industrial revolution. This industrial revolution took place in England and then spread all over the part of West, and that was too followed in India by the Britishers. The British inculcated an economic system in India which favored the economic system in England. Whatever England used to follow, the same was followed by the Britishers in India. Due to this, British gained economic benefits, but India faced economic exploitation. This was the biggest setback, this was the biggest drawback. The Britishers, they only brought all the technology, they brought all the administrative for their purpose, not for the development of the India, and so indirectly India was exploited in all means. Now we will see the land revenue policy. The village economic system in India was self-sufficient before the British rule. Like the farmers, they used to do their own work. The need of village were fulfilled through agriculture and related services. Land revenue was the main source of income of the state. Before the British rule, the land revenue was assessed according to the type of crop, was collected in the form of grains, was waived if the crop failed. The land was not confiscated if there was delay in payment of the tax. So, before the British rule, it was very easy. The land revenue was very easy to be paid for. Like the main source was to collect the land was the agriculture. Secondly, the most important thing was the revenue was decided depending upon the type of crop. Might be a cash crop or a economical crop. Was collected in the form of grains. Like whatever, the money system was not there, it was just a barter system. If a particular crop would fail, or if there was famine, or if there was heavy rainfall, or there was drought, so at that time the taxes were waived off. So there was no as such rule that at this particular time only the taxes has to be paid. It was whenever the farmers had a plenty of crop, whenever they used to get plenty of crop or the agriculture, the taxes were paid by them. But what was the policies of the Britishers during the British period? The British made number of changes in the existing system to increase the revenue, which included the tax was fixed on the basis of the areas. Payment of revenue in cash within the prescribed time limit was given. Confiscation of land in case of failure to pay revenue in time, means the lands were seized by the Britishers if a particular farmer failed to pay the tax on time. System of collection differed from region to region. All these led to the exploitation of farmers. Ultimately, farmers were exploited because of the British policies on the land revenue. What happened because of this? So, what were the effects of the land revenue system, or what were the consequences of land revenue system led by the Britishers? The farmers were forced to sell their produce to the merchants and middlemen at a low price in order to pay revenue. The middleman came into existence, and that is the reason the farmers had to sell their goods or the crops at very low prices. Farmers used to mortgage their lands and became indebted to money lenders. They were forced to sell land to pay debts, so they became bankrupt. The farmers were exploited by the government, landlords, merchants and money lenders. Ultimately, the farmers had to sell their land or mortgage their land to pay the revenues, because the new law had stated that if they fail to pay the revenue in time, their lands will be confiscated, would be seized by the Britishers. So the olden land revenue policies were very lenient. They depended on the states only. But slowly and gradually, when the Britishers took over, they started exploiting, as we have seen in the movie Lagan, how they were exploited by the Britishers. For small reasons they were given punishment, and those punishments were in the form of revenue, and if they failed to pay those revenues, the lands were ultimately seized by the Britishers. And this is how the Britishers started exploiting the common people. Because why they started exploiting? Because ultimately they wanted to rule the country. They wanted that as India was a hub of trade for the East India Company, our country had lots and lots of cash crops produced, and that is the reason. And the main thing was, we were not united, our rulers were not united, and this is how the Britishers, they took over and they ruled for 150 years in India. They exploited each and every corner of trade of India. In this part, we have seen 6 effects of British in India. The next we will see in the next period, that is on Friday, part 3, that is the concluding part of this lesson, we will complete along with the revision of first and second part. So students, it is a humble request to you that whatever today we have finished, whatever part we have finished, please do the reading of it and mark the answers from your textbook, from your workbook. The questions are given, so that whenever we will solve the questions, you will be able to mark the answers in a correct way. Thank you very much. Read the lesson, be safe, take care of yourself, and hope we will meet you soon in the school. Thank you. Bye.